Hello and welcome to the Spokane County Spotlight. I'm County Commissioner Mary Kuney, and today we have a special guest with us to discuss the challenges and opportunities ahead for us in our regional school districts. Joining me today is Ben Small, Superintendent for Central Valley School District. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Before we begin, I would like to give our audience a brief introduction of yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about, how you became a superintendent and why you're at Central Valley.
You bet. So very fortunate to live and work and serve the community that is Central Valley School District. This is starting my 13th year in Central Valley and my 31st year in education. Prior to that, I was a superintendent in a school district outside of Pasco, Columbia School District. And before that, I taught in the Walla Walla School District. Before that, was working my way through school, and a graduate of Spokane Falls Community College, graduate of Eastern Washington University, go Eags, and spent a good portion of my time getting my superintendent's credentials through WSU. So I'm a Sasquatch, I'm an Eag, and I'm a Coug.
So you're very much part of this community.
Absolutely.
Well, and I can say I'm a Central Valley alum, so graduate of Central Valley High School. So, it's been a while since I've been there. So tell us a little bit about Central Valley School District and what's been happening there.
Central Valley School District is a tremendous community to serve. We are a growing school district. We have projections to be upwards of 18,000 students by 2029. Have been growing at about 250 to 300 students a year over the last, really over the last 8 years. We serve right now about 15,000 students and across the spectrum of K-12 education. And we also have one of the largest early learning centers in the state of Washington, where we serve our youngest of students in the Central Valley School District. We are a community that comes together when we need to. We are a community that is resilient and strong, and a community that I think is facing this pandemic with strength. At the same time, we have the same struggles that everybody else has, but we pull together to get through it.
Oh, very good. And how many, you've got 2 high schools, how many middle schools and elementary schools do you have in Central Valley?
We're right now 13 elementary schools. We're at 6 middle schools. We have a K-8 school at Summit School, and we're going to open our 3rd comprehensive high school in 2021, Ridgeline High School. We have also Spokane Valley Tech and the Academy at Spokane Valley Tech that we are part of. It is a Central Valley school, and we also have Micah Peak High School. So we have a variety and a lot of different pathways for our families and our students to choose as they complete their K-12 education.
Which I think that's one of the bright things about Central Valley School District is all the choices for parents and students to be able to get educated in whatever manner they feel is best.
Absolutely, and we really try to tailor those approaches to the needs of our community. Our community said we needed STEM education across this region, as we knew that education in science, technology, engineering, math was going to be a need for the future workforce in the United States, and especially in the state of Washington. And we responded by really creating Project Lead the Way classes. The STEM Academy at Spokane Valley Tech is exactly a response to how do we provide that unique STEM education for our students.
No, well, like I said, I'm proud to be an alum, so thank you very much. So can you tell us about the planning that led to Central Valley's response to the governor's order to close schools statewide last March? Because that was pretty, the COVID environment was devastating for all of us, but particularly I think for schools.
Yeah. So we were planning for our response, and we had to plan for, we didn't know if it was going to be short-term or long-term, and we were planning for our response weeks ahead of time, updating our pandemic flu plan, looking at the infrastructure of the Central Valley School District. What did we have for technology? Understanding how we might be able to feed our children if we had to close schools. How were we going to get devices in the hands of our children if we were going to be out for a prolonged period of time? And one of the things that we're proud of is that through that planning, basically the day after school closed, we were feeding our children across our community. And that was important to us, to take care of our families and their needs. I think that as we move forward with that planning, I think it got bumpy as we tried to meet the educational needs of our students, the academic needs of our students, in an environment that we hadn't done before, which was completely remote. And that got bumpy. And I think our staff made a tremendous effort in very much reaching out to our families, but it wasn't always successful. And it wasn't always successful for our families as well. So we planned ahead of the shutdown. As we got implementing that plan and we started to get into the academics and how do we meet the needs of our families in that way, there were some inconsistencies, lack of internet connectivity, some of just the notion of how do you have multiple children in a learning environment at the same time, connecting with teachers, and then parents who are supporting them in learning. I know for me, Elliot worked his way out of my ability to help him in math. Elliot's an 8th grader at Evergreen. He'll be a freshman at Central Valley High School. Gracie is a 5th grader at Sunrise. She'll be a 6th grader at Evergreen. And Elliot just really dug in, but he got into some math that was really difficult, and we struggled. We were leaning on the teacher and emailing, and the teacher would get back and help. But at the end, Elliot started to struggle himself, both emotionally and how did he missed the connectivity with his friends, and that teacher kind of brought him back in, and he finished strong. Gracie started out struggling because we got an email about 2 weeks into this thing from her teacher that says, "Hey, she hasn't turned in any homework. She hasn't turned in any assignment. What's going on? Are you helping her?" And then Gracie started to roll, and she finished strong, but our children both responded differently to this situation. And I saw it from those sides too, the bumpiness, the how did we as a school district support our families through this? We worked hard at it, we want to get better at it, and we will get better at it as we move into this next phase.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that was hard, and I'll just, as an elected official, during that time period, none of us knew what was going to be happening. So it was very hard to plan. You didn't
Absolutely.
plan that you were going to be out of school the rest of the year. Yeah. So it's a very difficult situation, it was for all of us and for everyone. So I think you guys did a great job, in that constant moving of the date of, and then figuring out you weren't going to be back for the rest of the school year and what that was going to be. But looking back at the 2019-20 school year, what were some of the biggest lessons learned during those last 3 months of school that you've taken away?
I think that we need to invent better ways to engage with our families, meaning that it might take more knocking on doors, it might take more in-person connectivity with them, that we can't rely just on internet connectivity and devices, that our parents need guidance. Sometimes they have internet, sometimes their children have the device, but how do they set that stage for that child to learn the best in those environments? I also learned that we're strong, we're resilient as a community, that people reached out to other people, that people helped out. We delivered meals every Friday to our students who are homeless and who are in need of food over the weekend. We delivered over 600 food packets to our children, and we had volunteers from our community, from STCU, from Spokane Valley Partners. Our children, our high school students volunteered to help us pack those meals. I also believe that as we went through this process, we understood that the grading systems that were put in place were sometimes hindering students moving forward. Some of them realized that, if they looked at their grade and their grade was what it is, they didn't have to work as hard. And so we had to adjust, and we had to look at ways to motivate our children differently as well.
So you announced recently that you will be beginning the school year virtually, following the guidance of our local health officials. Tell me about the plan for returning to school virtually in September.
So first of all, one of our biggest desire is to return in person. And we have completed a plan that allows us to do that with all of the very strict adherence to Department of Health Labor and Industries, and OSPI guidelines. That's our number one priority, and it's what we want for our children. It has become apparent to us that that is not possible and not possible for us to do and live within the guidelines and the best health practices as we look at community spread of COVID in our county. And so we have devised 3 ways for our parents to engage with us in a virtual environment. The first way to do that is parents can choose to say, I'm going to keep my child in a virtual environment the whole year. I'm not ready for them to return in person. And what we'll do is we'll set up a virtual school for those children and families where they will get a community of virtual learners. We're going to engage that community and families differently so that they have a social environment as well. Parents can then choose a track that is a school-paced track, meaning that they're in virtual learning, but that they're going to return to school as soon as we can return. And then we have a third track, which is a self-paced track in virtual learning, where the parents and families are saying, we think it's best for us to work through the curriculum at our own pace. We'll have a Central Valley School District teacher guiding them in their work, but it won't be on a set schedule. The family will be able to set that schedule and work through the process. We're also working on a 4th option for our families, and that 4th option would be that self-paced or a want to return to school in a self-paced environment or an evening environment where it wouldn't be the regular time that we are offering instruction, so there would be a 4th. I think the other thing that's really important, we have purchased curriculum that is built to be in the virtual environment. The curriculum that we used last year was built and was more standalone and was more to be delivered by the teacher only. The curriculum that we have purchased this year is built for that virtual backbone, can reside on that virtual backbone and be adaptive to where a student is, so that a parent can interface and support a student without necessarily having the direct intervention with a teacher. We think that's very important. And then finally, we have adopted a single platform that virtual environment lives on. So it doesn't matter if your student's in kindergarten or a senior in high school, they are accessing the curriculum from the same learning management system, from that same platform. That gives our families the ability to focus on the learning and not necessarily managing the technology. So before we would have, we may have Google Classroom, Seesaw, or Dojo, which were all places where that curriculum was being placed. Now it's one, and a family will be able to log on the learning management system, see the schedule for their child. If they have 2 or 3 children, if they have more than that, you can see the schedule and work from that singular platform as we move forward. So it's a very robust, very different virtual learning platform. At the same time, our first goal is to get our children back to school to the greatest extent possible in person.
And you know, as a community member and an elected official and, you know, on the health board, that is our hope as well. I mean, it's, and I know that's, you know, the superintendents are all very passionate about that. You know, so we need to be doing our part in the community. I know we've recently seen a really our highest day ever. And those are the things we can't have happen to get our kids back in school. So we need to be doing our part as the community to help you to get our kids back in school. So over the course of the last several months, I know Central Valley School District has been working with a large committee of parents, teachers, nurses, administrators, and community leaders, and as well as elected officials. Can you tell us about the planning that has been going on into that reopening plan?
So we started, well, thank you very much, Mary, for serving on that, giving us the perspective of an elected official and also as somebody on the regional health board. Your guidance was really important. It's important to note that we started planning in June, before June, on the structure of how we were going to plan for our reopening. We wanted to have parents' input, we wanted to have teacher input, we wanted to have community input as to the structure of the plan. We had 4 committees, a committee on operations and safe operations, we had a committee on high school education, committee on middle school, and a committee on elementary education. And at the base of everything that we did is we created a virtual backbone. So we knew that however we were going to return to education, that this could have been this could be a bumpy ride for us. And we could be in school and have an outbreak and have to close school. And we wanted continuity between the classroom and this virtual environment. So we created a virtual backbone that would exist in any of our plans or any way that we implemented our plans going forward. That virtual backbone really mirrored up our regular curriculum. So it's like we replaced our curriculum with this virtual curriculum, K-12, so that we were able to connect with it very readily. And if a class went down for 2 weeks or a school was closed for 2 weeks, they could shift into that virtual backbone and out of that virtual backbone, depending on the circumstances that we faced. That was one of the main priorities that the committee had talked about and moved forward. We also then talked about under what circumstances would we as a school district open our schools to in-person learning. And we worked tirelessly through protocols, screening protocols for students, health check protocols for students, what our ventilation systems would be in our schools. We also set together our protocols for masking. We understand that as we first started this, wearing a mask was a question. I think there's no question about wearing a mask anymore, that it is absolutely critical for us reopening our state. And so all of those pieces and all those details were laid out in real detail. We set a schedule for an elementary school, we set a schedule for a middle school and a high school. We believed that if we were going to have to shift to that virtual environment, even if we were in person, we needed to go to a 3-period day at our secondary level so that our students and teachers could manage that virtual environment better than we did last year. Managing 6 classrooms as a 6th grader or a 7th grader and 8th grader, and the parents supporting them for 6 classrooms or 6 teachers is really difficult. And so we went to a quarter system, 3 periods a day at our secondary levels in order to help us manage this virtual environment that we thought we may have to switch in and out of. Our board approved the plan based on the guidance and our ability to go in person and the guidance of our health department officials. They approved that plan on the 27th. We went forward and moved to be ready to implement that, and then we got the information from our Department of Health, and we also got the information from the State Department of Health about how we should be opening our schools in areas with community spread.
Mm-hmm. And our community is there right now. So, I mean, that is the strong recommendations that are coming down from both the local health officer as well as the governor's office and the State Department of Health. And I have to say, you know, it was great to be on that committee to really listen and learn, to see the innovative things that you're doing, to be able to adjust to whatever that need is for the students and families in the future. Because even as we say that it's going to be virtual in September, we know if numbers come down, you know, you're ready to pivot and make those changes. I think one of the things that was interesting was your parent survey that you did. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, we did a parent survey that was fairly in-depth. It wasn't just 1 or 2 questions. It was asking our parents about how they feel about returning to school. Do they want to return to school? How do they feel about masks? And we had a large number of our parents want to return to the classroom, and so we were preparing for that. But we're also preparing for parents who didn't feel that they were ready for their children to return to the classroom. And so that created the backbone of what we were looking at as part of the plan. Turns out we couldn't implement the part of the plan that was for the in-person piece, and have chosen to follow that guidance from the Department of Health. We also understood and wanted to know if people would need to use transportation, because transportation is a big issue. The guidance and the recommendations are to run our transportation at 50% of capacity. That changes a whole lot of what we're doing. So we're asking parents, if we had lower capacity, would you need transportation? And that was really valuable as well. We also found out that this community was really concerned about not contributing to the spread of the virus. That they didn't want this to create more of a spread. We had critical data, ran the survey, did the analysis for us, this really in-depth analysis of how our community was feeling.
So as we look, to school opening in September, we know at this point in time that it will be virtually. One of the questions I think a lot of parents are asking is, in that virtual learning environment, how will teachers monitor student attendance and provide that engagement?
Absolutely. So I'll just take, for example, a first or second or third grader in a environment where the teacher is instructing. So typically what you'll see is the teacher is going to introduce the lesson, and then after the learning or the teaching happens, and there's going to be some independent practice. So then the teacher may be meeting in small groups of 6 kids or 5 kids or 4 kids and helping that group while the other group's in independent practice. Then the teacher will get back on and say, okay, now I'm going to shift groups, and you're going to move to a different group moving forward with that. It isn't going to be screen time the whole time that we're there, but there will be a teacher who will be supporting that learning the whole school day. If you're in that self-paced environment, a teacher is going to create a learning plan for you and your family. You and your family will look at the learning plan and work your way through the curriculum that is available to you online. If as you move through that curriculum and through the day, there will be breaks. There'll be go out and run and play, come back, go have lunch, come back. So the natural look of the school day will be there, and it's not going to be just all screen time. But our teachers will be instructing live. They will be interfacing with students. They will be actively solving problems with students. They will be available to answer questions if parents have those questions during that class time that you would see in a normal school day.
Very good. Thank you. So in addition to that, then what support, as you look at the virtual environment, will be available for families in the Central Valley School District?
So first of all, we will distribute one-to-one devices. So every student in our district will have a device, and that will be checked out to them. We have enough Chromebooks to get to every student, so it'll be a one-to-one system. One of the things that we will also do is our counselors will be working with families to manage what that day looks like. As you may have 3 or 4 children. So how is it that we can schedule that? Is it best for it to have one child in a self-paced environment, and another child needs all the structures, so they've got to be with that teacher all day long? And so you're going to see that outreach from us as well. You mentioned attendance. We will be taking attendance on a daily basis. And then we have devised an outreach team that will be knocking on the door and talking to families. Hey, we see you've missed some class time. How can we help you? What is it that you need in order for us to help you engage? We've also devised a help desk system that will be active and available from 8 in the morning to about 9 o'clock at night, where families are struggling with something in the learning environment. They can call our help desk. They can get help immediately for tech issues. They could get connected to a teacher or a principal if they need to in the off hours. And so this help desk system is meant to be much more customer service and much more real time than we were last year.
I think that'll be a really great addition.
Yes.
And I think, will that allow you then to see if there's any barriers, for families trying to, connect? Because I know that's been, a discussion from, the spring versus now in that virtual environment.
Absolutely. A parent can call and say, I'm really struggling with this aspect. And it may not be just the technology. It may be, I'm really struggling with figuring out how to get my child to focus in this time. Now, that might not be the help desk solve that, but a principal or a counselor is going to then connect and help that family through that situation. And so they'll be assigned to different schools. So the help desk will know the teachers, know the principal, be able to get a hold of the principal to help solve those barriers that happen with our families. It could be food. And that may be where that then gets connected to other people as we go.
Well, and I think it's important, as we've talked about kids and not being in school, just the mental health side of it. Absolutely. And so having that helped us be, even for that to say, my kids are struggling, to be able to have them, the counselors be able to access them
Yeah.
and help provide that.
Yeah. And I also think that outreach from the counselors to our families is going to be a stronger piece of this outreach as well. So it isn't just about compliance, it's really about engagement. How do we engage with families in an authentic way? Our community is resilient, but we need support too. Our families need support. We need to be able to do that better than we did this spring, and we're going to. We're going to live up to that bar. We know that in-person education is the best environment for our kids, and we're going to get there as soon as we can. And we're going to provide the best service and the best environment that we can for our families in this new virtual environment as well.
And I agree with you. We are going to get there. It's going to happen.
Yes.
You know, and you've got exciting things coming in 2021 with the new high school. I think Central Valley has poised itself well to, you know, with the bond issues that have passed, you know, and the work that you've done in your schools, that you're going to be ready and in a much better position to welcome kids back.
Absolutely.
Because of that. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Well, we have Horizon Middle School has been finished. It will be finished and be ready. We've got a temporary occupancy, and so our offices will move in. Our offices will work out of Horizon Middle School. That school has just been totally redone and is an amazing learning environment for our kids. Ridgeline High School is on schedule and ready to open in the fall of 21 and become the third comprehensive high school in the Central Valley School District to join our CVNU High and then our two non-traditional pathway schools at Spokane Valley Tech and Micah Peak High School.
Which I think is very exciting. So very excited. So we just have a few minutes left, Ben.
Yes.
So is there any last comments that you would like to make?
I think that the comment that I would like to say is this, is that we have taken all the information available to us, evaluated that information, evaluated the appropriateness of our children returning to school in person. We've taken the guidance of our State Department of Health, the guidance of our local Department of Health, and balanced that. We understand and know our children learn best in that in-person education, but we also believe that it is our responsibility to make sure that we open appropriately. And when we open, we'll open in the phases that we have set out in our plan. I believe a K-6 model with the lower class sizes that we have established is absolutely appropriate and attainable if we can work as a community to get our numbers in our community down.
And we will get there because it is going to be important to get those kids back face to face. And so we will all work hard to wear a mask, you know, physically distance and do the hygiene that's necessary so we can get our kids back. So thank you very much. I've enjoyed our discussion today, and I think our viewers have too, but I'm afraid we've run out of time. I'd like to thank my guests for joining us today and to thank Ben Small for his leadership and commitment to our community during this difficult time. As a reminder, a video of today's Spotlight can be accessed on our Spokane County homepage and our Spokane County YouTube channel. You can also listen on the go and download our Spokane County Spotlights as a podcast on the SoundCloud or iTunes apps. Just go to one of these apps and search for Spokane County. I'm County Commissioner Mary Kuney. Thank you for joining us today on the Spokane County Spotlight.